You've cleared your minions, but what's next? Most people would gank a lane, but miserably fail due to making mistakes that they'll never notice. That's why I've created a 4-step formula for mid lane early game, so you can perfectly rotate. Step 1. Wave clearing. Start off by helping your jungler with the buff by casting one skill before you go to clear your wave. Once you're at your lane, clear as fast as you can and avoid casting too many skills, as that could drain your mana. If you're a mage with demon shoes in your build such as Sicilian and Valir, you buy 2 magic necklaces first. However, if you're a mage with enchanted talisman in your build, such as Novaria, Faramis, Luoyi, Savior, and Valentina, you buy 1 magic necklace as only 1 is needed for the item. You also want to swap out enchanted talisman with Necklace of Durance for your build when against strong healing. But if you're a mage with neither of the items such as Lunox, Nana, and Veil, then build normally where you start with boots. Now let's go back and talk about clearing the minion wave. While you clear the minion wave, distance yourself from your own minion wave so he has to choose between poking you or clearing the wave. Meanwhile, you can do the opposite if they aren't distancing themselves from their minions and attack them at the same time. You should also position yourself on the side of where your jungler is starting their buff. If you position yourself on the opposite side of where they start their buff, they can get invaded easier, and you won't be able to help them faster than if you were on the same side. So for example, if they start on purple buff, you should position yourself close to the top side, and if they start on orange buff, position yourself on the bottom side. Step 2. Level 2 rotation. After you've cleared your wave, you have to make a decision on whether to rotate or not. Ganking the first time isn't about killing the enemy, but if these 3 criteria are met, you should immediately gank the lane. You can still rotate if none of them are met, but keep in mind that you most likely won't be able to get a kill. Therefore, I suggest only rotating as level 2 alone if your ally is losing and needs help. Otherwise, it's better to cut the enemy roamer and mage's rotation to stop them from ganking, where you let the laners 1v1 on their own. Cutting their rotation means you camp and zone them in the bushes near the mid lane, where you either poke them to force recalling or kill them. The only time you shouldn't rotate or cut the enemy's rotation is if your jungler or roamer needs help with Litha Wanderer invading or gets invaded, where you stay around them and avoid soloing. Furthermore, when ganking, do not overstay on that lane because otherwise you'll be back to your lane late and lose a few minions. Also, when returning back to your lane, don't be too focused on hurrying back, as enemies could be camping in the bushes near mid lane. Always check the bushes using your skill, or rotate using these safe paths unless you know for certain that enemies aren't camping there. But despite rotating the safe paths, it's still important to check the bushes with your skill just in case there aren't good enemies camping deep into your jungles. Now, after you've returned to your lane for the second minion wave, there are 2 important things to know. The first important thing is that at this point, roamers have reached level 2 as well, which means you've become more vulnerable to being ambushed from bushes. So while clearing, don't position yourself too far from your turret, but instead near or even under the turret. This is even more important later because once the enemy has reached level 4, some of them can do a flicker combo with their ultimate. The second important thing is that a small team fight could happen too while you're clearing, so pay close attention to the map. If you can predict a team fight will happen before it actually happens, leave your lane immediately to help your team. Try to leave before the enemy mage does, so that your team has the numbers advantage. Signs of a potential team fight could be that the roamer or jungler is trying to invade or the enemy XP laner is missing after cutting his wave. I suggest only leaving your minions to help your team if you believe your allies are reliable, because if you abandoned your farm just for the invade to fail, then it's not worth it. But if there's nothing happening, then clear your wave and wait for the third minion wave before rotating. Step 3. Rotation before turtle. By the time you've cleared the third minion wave, you're level 3. Here's how you should rotate afterwards. Normally, the roamer won't be level 4 for the first turtle, but if you rotate to the XP lane at 1 minute 40 seconds into the game, where you and the XP laner share minions, you'll both reach level 4, making it possible for your roamer to clear the mid lane to get level 4 too. Although remember to tell them to clear it, and if the roamer won't listen, stay on mid and clear yourself. Step 4. Rotation after turtle. After the turtle fight, you're back to rotating and ganking, so I've got 2 more important tips to gank successfully. The first tip is to try to rotate and enter the bush before the minions arrive so you won't be seen. Before you enter it, expect the enemy to hide in that bush, where you check the bush with your skill and attempt to kill them there. In the early game, enemy laners tend to hide in bushes whenever they aren't seen on the map unless they recalled. So if they're not in there, there's a chance they recalled, where you can try to camp and wait for them to show up. But remember to not overstay, as I previously mentioned. The second tip is to further increase your gank's success if camping them isn't possible and the enemy has flicker or dash. When you show up from the bush and the first time you cast your skill, aim where they're at. But the second time you cast your skill, don't do that, as now that you've revealed yourself, they will dash or flicker to retreat. So instead of aiming where they're currently standing, aim already where they'll dash or flicker, because usually they'll dash or flicker into your attack. Most of the time, it will result in a kill with the enemy wasting their flicker, but if not, then a forced flicker and a recall. But be careful when rotating to the lane. If the enemy team sees you rotating towards a lane, the enemy laner will immediately hug their turret and play safe, making it harder for you to gank where their teammates will show up as well. So here's what you should do. After you clear the wave, make sure the enemy won't catch a glimpse of which direction you were heading, by not rotating until all minions are gone and they stop providing vision on you. A good enemy will always notice where you're going, although you can take advantage of it as well. Right before they lose vision on you, pretend to walk towards the opposite lane you don't want to gank, then change direction and rotate to the correct lane. This fools the enemy into thinking that they can play aggressively, as they thought you went to gank the opposite lane. But when rotating, make sure that you don't get noticed by the enemy mid laner, roamer, or jungler either. If you don't know their positions on the map, use the previous safe paths to help you with that. Other than ganking, you can also try to counter-gank or cut the enemy's rotation. Counter-ganking means you follow up the enemy's rotation to try and stop them from killing your ally. Cutting the enemy's rotation is where you camp and predict which lane the enemy will rotate before they show up, where you either poke them or kill them. You can use the previous criterias on your own allies to predict where the enemies will rotate. But whether you should gank, counter-gank, or cut the enemy's rotation depends on the situation. If you want your gold laner to scale and farm freely, and you trust that they can carry later in the game, then gank their lane, or cut the enemy's rotation to stop them from ganking your gold laner. If cutting the enemy's rotation is too late, then you follow up where they rotated and try to counter-gank them. But if your gold laner isn't that reliable and the enemy gold laner seems to be farming a lot more than they should, then gank and shut down the enemy gold laner to stop them from farming further.